my mind was blown. And
Sleep is something that you do not get a lot of.
like, boo-hoo, life sucks right now because we didn't sleep. Type 1 diabetes is not going to go away right now.
I honestly don't know how they do it, because that just sounds horrible to never know.
Like, we hear you. We get you. Hey, Palmer fam, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome back to another episode of the Urgent Lows, where we talk about lifestyle and type 1 diabetes.
Here, we believe in embracing self-care through life's challenges. So we are back. The episode today is all going to be about type 1 diabetes caregivers who have sleepless nights. Because as a caregiver, sleep is something that you do not get a lot of, or very good sleep. And actually, with our episode before with Michelle, she mentioned that having a type 1 diabetes child is like having a newborn that you never grow out of.
Well, you never get out of the newborn stage.
Yes, you never.
Hear that, I was like, OMG, that's so true.
It really is.
I mean, I've never been in the baby stage, but I can only imagine it's the exact same thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and it is exhausting. And as a caregiver, there's a lot of challenges that you have, but I think the sleepless nights could be one of the most challenging just because of how much it affects everything else in your life.
And then if you're weird like me, you get the shingles.
Yes, for sure. So I think we start with clarifying that there are two types of sleepless nights for parents with type 1 diabetes. You have the parents like us who have their child has a Dexcom or a CGM. And then there are the parents whose child does not have one of those. And it's two very different types of situations that they go through. So I'll just start out by touching on the part that is not us, because I did get to experience this for the first 6 months my son was diagnosed, which is there is no CGM.
And isn't that typical when you first get your first diagnosis that you don't get put on equipment right away?
For my experience, it was, and I heard that from a lot of people. It might be different now,
Yeah.
but I know for one point, we were told by the doctors that for the first 6 months, outside of approving insulin, the insurance will not approve any of the equipment, a pump, a CGM, because they want you to fully prove that you have type 1 diabetes before they will invest the money into.
Because you want to fake that.
Yes, we definitely want to fake and take advantage of.
So did Evie not have equipment either for the first 6 months, or how did it work for her?
So for her, we actually got it right away within the first week, I think. Luckily, we had extra equipment that was Parker's old one. And so we put her on Parker's old pump, and we had Dexcoms already. So we put a Dexcom on her and connected it to a cell phone. We just had to go get a cell phone for her. And that's what we did. So she was pretty much on a devices from day one, and we were able to get it approved right away. And so I think it all arrived within a week. For that first 6 months for Parker, the plan was you pretty much had to wake up every 2 hours to do a physical blood sugar check. And so literally on my phone, I would set an alarm, 2 hours, wake up, do a physical check, because you have no idea where he is at. And for any parent who's not on a CGM, I honestly don't know how they do it, because that just sounds horrible to never know. We also have joked that your anxiety is probably not as bad because you're not looking at it, but still, I don't think I could ever go a day without having the numbers and physically having to always check, especially throughout the night.
Yeah, I really can't imagine that. I mean, I'm just an anxiety-driven person at any point, so I don't know what's better or worse for me, but I really cannot imagine not knowing where the kids are at night, or, if they're going low, being alerted that they're going low. That's so scary to me.
And it's so, at least with when you're on a pump, especially the pumps nowadays with all the smart technology in it, who's reading the CGM is going to help keep things in range. But you don't really have that with a when you're on injections and all, and so your numbers are probably not gonna be as good and up more have up and downs. I'm assuming is also the case. That's what it's like when you don't have a CGM, but when you do have a CGM, like our kids have, we have all the numbers, so we do have the ability to have a good night's sleep. First, you have to deal with all the anxiety of it, but you can go to sleep, and if something happens, if the kids go high, the kids go low, alarms will go off and wake us up so we can be alerted and some type of action needs to be taken.
Mhm.
So that is the good news about it. But also waking up in the middle of the night with alarms going off is pretty hectic.
Yeah. I feel like most of the people probably tuning in have heard this alarm and know the noise, but what happened I think it was yesterday, we were sitting in your office, and we don't have the kids this week, and all of a sudden, it's just me and Nick in the office, and my printer in the office just kinda, like, turned on by itself. It was weird, but it made kind of a noise that was a little similar to the diabetes alert noise, and I was like, "What was that?" And we both were looking at each other like, Where did that noise come from? What was that?" And you definitely, like, have a little, I think, PTSD with that noise. Just because if you haven't heard it, it's an alarm and it's like, like, I think that's the best way to describe it. And in our case, since we have 2 kids with it, if you're, like, really having a lucky day, those alarms might go off at the same time, so times 2. So it's like, and then, like,
Yeah.
it just goes on and on and on, and I've said it before in previous episodes, when we first got married and we moved in together, I was so nervous about these alarms and missing an alarm and sleeping through something. I insisted that I would also have my phone on volume 100, and so it was my phone, Nick's phone, and then we also had a loaner phone just in case I was also backed up to the equipment. So we had 3 different ways to wake up if something were to go high or low. And that was traumatizing, to say the least. Like, I think back of those days and I'm like, OMG, like, how did we even, first of all, why did it take us so long? And it took our therapist, like, really being like, hey, like, first of all, you guys are gonna, like, burn out so quickly doing this. Like, it's not feasible. Like, that does not sound like a good idea. And also having a therapist kind of, like, hone in for me, like, "Hey, when you weren't here and when you weren't, in their lives or part of their family or married to Nick, Nick was doing this on his own." So, Nick was sleeping, getting woken up by these alarms. You're really supposed to be playing, like, a support for your husband, but it's really on Nick, and I kn like, and that at first, that made me feel bad because 'cause I'm like, "I'm being a bad partner to him, like, I'm not being a good wife, like, he's tired too, he needs sleep too," but it's kinda like a rhythm we had to get into of I had to be more of a support to Nick versus being on 24/7 with the alarms and with the alerts and everything like that.
Yeah, and I know before you came along, being a single dad, it was one of my fears is what if I sleep through the alarms? What if I'm too tired to wake up? And that was the reason why I had 2 alarms going off, because if one didn't go off or wake me up, at least the other one will, right? It's like double the alarms, but it did. It became a little bit too much to say the least. And honestly, too, with having 2 kids, what a lot of people probably don't even really think about, it's already bad enough when you have 1 kid and the alarms are going off.
Mhm.
Well, the chance of alarm is going off is double when there's 2 kids.
Yeah, and then also the alarm could go off, you could treat the high or low, and then get back in bed, and within, like, 3 minutes, the other kid's alarm might be going off, which is like, "Are you kidding me?" And we definitely have had nights like this where Nick doesn't really ever say bad words. He says I do more than him, but I think I'm a saint. But, um get Nick on a night where these alarms are nonstop and it's both of them going off, like, very close apart from each other. and you'll be hearing some bad words coming out of his mouth because he is not happy about it.
Yeah, it is. It's those nights that everything just seems to go wrong, which you will have those, and even when you treat them, like, there are times where I don't know what's going on, but you will treat the kids, and it just nothing seems to work. Like, they will just not go up, and they
Mhm.
and I, to this day, do not understand what it is that would not allow the kids to get up, but they would just stay down, and it is so frustrating because just because you woke up and let's say Gatorade is kind of our go-to at night, it's simple. The kids are honestly really good about even if they're barely awake, I can stick a straw in their mouth and they will drink some Gatorade.
Yeah.
And so just because you've given them Gatorade, it does take a little bit for your blood sugar to raise up and for the Dexcom to even catch up because the CGM is behind, and I don't know exact amount, but I think it's something like maybe 10 minutes behind, right?
Mhm.
And the alarms go off every 5 minutes. So
Mm.
just because the alarm went off one time, you get up, go treat it, doesn't mean the alarms stop. They're going to continue to go off every 5 minutes for the next probably 15 minutes or so. And then, like, you're still not being able to fall asleep, and plus you're trying to make sure, "Alright, did they get up? Did they have enough?" All those type of things. The last thing you wanna do is not do it right and not give them enough, and they don't get up enough. But at the same time, I've also had the issue where I've given them too much Gatorade.
Mhm.
They start flying up, and then the pump will think, "Oh, they're starting to go high. Let me increase their basal," and it just shoots them right back down
Yeah.
30 minutes later. So it's just like, oh my goodness, it's like a roller coaster. And yes, as Rebecca said, on those nights, because there's definitely been nights where, I mean, I wear a whoop and this says like you had 2 hours of sleep and I had to get up and get the kids ready for school. I am not doing well on those days, as anybody would probably not be doing well working off of 2 hours of sleep or just anxiety. And while I am also better at this part than you, I still have my struggles at times. There are certain times where you're waking up at, let's say, 2 a.m. because of alarms, and you just can't fall back to sleep.
And then I think we've gotten questions before from people that don't have type 1 diabetes in their family, but it's like, okay, do the kids wake up? Like, I've gotten that a lot. Like, my parents will ask, well, like, when you're treating them for low or giving them Gatorade, do they wake up? Technically, yes, they're awake in order to be able to swallow, but those kids, they don't remember anything. They're so used to it. It's just a part of their lives that, like, we'll talk to them the next day and be like, "Oh, remember how much Gatorade we had to give you?" And they're like, "No, we have no idea about that." And we've had some sometimes you just gotta laugh because, like, what else are you gonna do, cry? So, we just laugh about these situations, but I remember one of the first times that I gave, Evie Gatorade in the middle of the night, and I decided when we moved to our house to I got her this really cool bed, but it looks really good, but it's not equipped for type 1 diabetes at night because it's like a two-level bunk bed but the bottom floor is like a desk and a dresser for her. So then there's like little stairs to go up to the top part where she sleeps and yeah, we've had situations where Nick has missed a step and just gone flying down, like, it's been interesting. I swear we need to have, like, a hidden camera or something because we could probably, like, put these on YouTube and start making money.
Yeah, that's
Just
true. Between that and me walking into after we painted our doors black and I
Yep.
walked straight into it, yeah.
But then the time I was giving Evie Gatorade, so I climb up, she's fast asleep, and I have the Gatorade, I had the little straw, like, ready to go so that all I have to do is, like, get it close to her. And get her. OMG, this girl, like, she kept going this with her mouth, and then it kept moving the straw around, and I'm trying to, like, move with her, and mind you, it's dark. I'm climbing, so half my body is up on these stairs, and she's just going like this, and I'm just like, "Oh my god." Like, this is just not working, like, I cannot get the straw in her mouth. But yeah, it's just but then the reality of the situation is like the next day, the next morning comes and the day doesn't stop. Like, there's still school, there's still work, there's still responsibilities. So just because we had a bad night of sleep doesn't mean that we don't have to wake up in a few hours and start getting the kids ready for school and get them to school and then go to work and try to be functional at work and have half a brain when you're working on 2 hours sleep.
Well, it is not fun for all those people who deal with this. We feel you. I do believe, though, that we've gotten a lot better and we don't have as many sleepless nights or alarms going off. It still obviously happens throughout the week, but I felt like for a while there was always at least once every single night. And now I feel like it's only really a few times a week that
Mm,
we have an issue, right? I mean, I really credit that to the fact we've gotten a lot better with managing their diabetes and being more preventive
mhm,
and smarter about it. And I really do credit you on this because you coming into my life has really encouraged me and pushed me to do a better job with managing and being more proactive and making honestly smarter decisions, right? And so some of the things that we have done that I think have really kind of paid off is one, making sure what they're eating for dinner is better for them, where you're not going to be doing things that's going to have a lot of delays with their insulin or shoot up at night, as well as making sure you eat early enough. Like I definitely noticed that whenever we have a late dinner, maybe we're eating at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, we have a lot worse nights compared to a night that we eat at 6 o'clock or something, right?
yeah, and I think it's super important, which I did a lot of this research when I first became part of the family, but protein, like, especially for dinners, anything you're gonna have before you go to bed, make sure it's high protein because that's gonna help manage the diabetes, manage the body. They're gonna be able to break down their food better versus being spiked by a lot of carbs or whatever the case may be. So I always and it's a battle with Parker. We are in a battle with that preteen right now that I don't know what it is about him. It's like he does not wanna eat any sort of protein, like, whatsoever, and we have literally tried to explain to him in every way possible of why he needs protein and how it helps him and how it helps his numbers and how it helps to regulate his body, and he will just, like, avoid it at all costs, and I don't know if it's obviously, he's almost a teenager, his body's going through changes, but it is a battle to get him to eat, like, any sort of meat or anything. Evie, on the other hand, she loves it. She'll eat every meat known to mankind, like,
Uh,
she loves every meat, like, it's not a problem with her.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this or have ever heard this story, but Parker has actually always been that way, has not liked meat. He's never been a big meat eater, even as a kid. And we're even concluding like chicken nuggets. He would not eat chicken nuggets because he did not like chicken.
I did not know that. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Do you know how we got him to start eating meat?
How?
Well, it wasn't actually me.
Was it sauce?
No,
Oh.
it was the Red Power Ranger.
Oh?
So it was all because we went to a convention, and at the convention, my son was super into Power Rangers. I grew up watching Power Rangers. You watched Power
Love
Rangers
Power
as a
Rangers.
kid.
Yeah.
And so we met Jason, the original Red Power Ranger, Austin St. John, and was having a fantastic conversation. He was talking to Parker, one of the coolest, nicest guys you will ever meet. And it came up that he had type 1 diabetes. He knew everything about type 1 diabetes. And he was the one that was actually saying, well, as a type 1 diabetic,
He has type 1 too, the Power
no,
Ranger?
he does not,
Oh,
but he was familiar
got it.
with
Okay.
type 1. And he brought up that, hey, well, first off, because you have type 1 diabetes, and if you want to get big and strong, it is so important that you eat meat. And he just kind of said that. And I was like, oh, well, he doesn't like meat. Like, this is, and like, yes, you need to listen to what he's having to say. And he was like, really? You don't like meat? Like, not even chicken or anything? And Parker's like, no. He's like, all right, well, will you do me a favor? I need you to start eating meat because that's the only way you're going to get big and strong. It's really going to help your diabetes. That was the first time we were able to start getting him to eat meat, and it's all because of the Red Power Ranger.
OMG, I love this story. How you never told me this?
I
I
don't know.
love this.
I mean, Parker was probably I mean, he was diagnosed at 2.5. He was probably, like, 4 or 5 at the time,
Oh,
but it was
gross.
literally what got him eating meat, and like I said, he's not a big meat eater. He will eat it, mostly because we have to force him to,
Yeah.
but he's actually always been that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle, and we've definitely tried to find, like, alternatives, like, different things that have protein in it that isn't necessarily meat, and it's just a lot, and then a whole other thing that I didn't even think that I would be if you would ask me 10 years from now, do you think that you're gonna be tracking how much your 2 stepkids go to the bathroom and, are regular? No, you coulda fooled me, that was not on my bingo card, but because of type 1 diabetes, they have they're prone to having a more difficult time being regular with going to the bathroom, and that is something that we have struggled with both kids, but really with Evie, because when she isn't regularly going to the bathroom, she becomes constipated and she's such a little girl that her belly just kind of like blows up and then it causes her to have UTIs and it's just a lot of things that kind of snowball into bigger things with her. I've just, like, really realized the importance of, like, first of all, your body is fascinating to me and how much you need to take care of it and, like, what you feed it and fuel it is, like, the biggest game changer, and how much, like, you have to be regular and have to be stay on top of that. But, like, I hear myself being like, "When was the last time you went to the bathroom?" To the kids, and, like, randomly, I asked my sister the other day because she has 2 boys around the same age. I'm like, "Do you know their, like, schedules? Like, do you know how often they go?" And she was like, "Yeah." So it kinda made me feel a little better that I'm not the only crazy one asking them, like, "When was the last time you went to the bathroom?" But it's true, like, Parker, like, can go a long time, and I'm just like, "This is not good. This is not healthy, not good, not helping you."
Yeah, it really is, and like you said, constipation is something I didn't even realize that until Evie was having major issues, and it was like, yeah, that is an issue with type 1 diabetics, is they deal with constipation. So going back to the food real quick, as I mentioned, eating, especially at dinner time, is so important. You touched on protein is really important to eat, especially eating protein, and honestly, eating protein first,
First, yeah.
for some reason helps. And then on top of that, and there's always even if there's not meat, like, we found, like, high protein pastas and stuff like that, which have been fantastic, and we do feel like it makes a difference. But I think the hardest thing that we had to really figure out is we need to prevent ice cream at night.
Or any sort of treats, desserts, yeah.
Yeah, like, if we're gonna do ice cream or something like that, it is best if we do it earlier in the day, right? Afternoon, lunchtime, because especially with ice cream, it is the absolute hardest
So
thing
hard.
in the world to manage. It is so delayed. There's so much, I think it's like fat content in it. So, like, it will be fine. And then literally 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, the kids will go flying up. And
Mhm.
so we just learned to, at all costs, try to avoid it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to preview something that is coming here. But we have a guest coming that is lined up who is a diabetes nutritionist who will be coming on the podcast. I am so excited because I feel like there is so much that we're going to be able to ask him
Yeah.
that I want to learn from
I'm
him
so excited.
and even about like some of this stuff and why.
Yeah.
So we're previewing it. It's coming in a few weeks. Really excited about it. But because, yeah, it is. What you eat is so important. And I remember too, the first time we met Elizabeth from Touched by Type 1, we had dinner with her,
Mhm.
and we obviously know she's type 1 diabetic, and she just knew how to eat and all these things,
Well,
and
she never once during that entire dinner gave herself insulin, and I'm just like my mind was blown, and
yeah,
after we walked away from that dinner, I go to Nick, I was like, "Did you realize she never gave herself insulin?"
mhm,
And it's because it was so high protein, everything she ate. I think everything she ate was high protein,
yep,
or it was like a veggie or something like that, and it was so amazing. I don't think she had anything carb related in the meal, and if she did, the protein she was eating, it just kinda, like, canceled it out.
Yeah.
But it was amazing, and we asked her about it, and it was just, she really had to learn how to feel her body, and when Elizabeth, in her episode, when we had her on, she mentioned a type 1 diabetic can eat the same thing that, like, we can eat, right? And that's 100% true, but just like anybody else, protein is good for us. Eating that first before the carbs actually gets us full off the protein, and that's why they say to have that first and your veggies first, and it goes for everybody. It's not just type 1 diabetics, and I think that that has opened our eyes, like, individually too, as, like, for our health, and I know I mentioned in our first episode of the year, like, this is my year of good gut health and, overall wellness for my body, and it's just eye-opening, and you see things on labels, and you start reading labels differently and looking at food differently, and you're like, wow, the amount of carbs in this is insanity. Like, the fact that we or even learning, like, how much insulin you have to give for, like, a Chick-fil-A milkshake, I'm like, "Oh," that kinda, like, ruined it for me because it's a lot that goes into it, and I actually posted something to my story a few days ago, but I have this, like, addiction to regular soda, Coke, and it's mainly Coke, not Diet Coke, regular Coke. I try to get into Diet Coke. I try to get into Coke Zero. It just doesn't do it for me. And I don't drink coffee and I don't drink tea. So it's like I use it as like my caffeine and I only have one a day. But I know I need to get rid of that. Like, I need to stop that. It messes up my stomach so bad. Like, I swear that's why I'm sick to my stomach all the time. I have really bad acid reflux. It's just not, it doesn't go with me. So, but it's so difficult because I feel like I get a little bit of like a caffeine rush after I do it. So, I tried many things, but I just got introduced to the Poppy brand, which is a probiotic soda. And I tried their one that's, like, similar to a cola, like a Coke. It didn't do it for me. But that orange soda that Poppy has tastes just like a Fanta orange soda, and it's amazing. So, I have been, like, now trying to have it and drink it out of a Chick-fil-A straw to make me still feel like I'm getting the same out of it, but it's a struggle, like, everything is a struggle, and I know my brother-in-law has mentioned this to both of us before, but it's like, I mean, he doesn't wish his kids had type 1 diabetes, but he sees what Parker and Evie are learning about eating and how much insulin to give themselves. And it's like, they're going to be so ahead of like my nephews when they grow up because Parker and Evie are actually going to know like what helps the body, what doesn't help the body, like what they need to fuel it versus like a regular kid that doesn't have type 1 diabetes, they don't think about that. Like, that's not a thought in their mind, and, like, it wasn't for me, and I would have sodas as a little girl or a young girl. Yeah, I think it's a millennial problem, but I don't know. I put a poll out there to see, so I'm curious to see, is it just all millennials that got addicted to soda, or is it just, yeah, a thing?
Yeah. I think it's time to talk about my worst nightmare and the time that I will most likely say a bad word at night. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. I don't know where you're going with this.
Compression lows.
Oh, yes. I was
O
actually gonna bring that up, that was something, but yes.
If you wanna get me riled up, it is a compression low.
So explain what a compression low is because it literally is the most annoying thing ever.
With your Dexcom, if you roll over and lay on it, it puts pressure on it, and for whatever reason, the Dexcom does not read properly, and it will make you say low,
Like urgent low.
like urgent low or something, and so all of a sudden, out of nowhere in the middle of the night, alarms are going off, urgent low, you wake up.
You're like, "Did I miss something? Did I
Yeah,
miss a low alarm and now they're urgent low? Like, what happened?"
and the urgent low alarms are worse than the normal low alarms, by the way. They're a lot more intense because 'cause they're like, "Warning, warning," kinda deal, right?
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden, you're hopping out of bed, you're running to the room, trying to be like, "Oh my god, there's urgent low, all what's going on?" and then you find out it's all fake. They're not actually low. It's literally because they just rolled over onto their arm and putting pressure on it, and it causes a false low.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And sometimes too, like, we're in the middle of sleeping, you get woken up, you don't even look at your phone. You just go immediately to treat them for this urgent low that they're in, and then you start giving them Gatorade, right? But then you look at your phone and you're like, "Oh man, that wasn't a real one. That was a compression low." But you may have already given them Gatorade. So
Yeah.
now you run the risk of them going high because they weren't low to begin with. They didn't need anything. They didn't need anything to get them up. And now you gave them Gatorade, and then it's like, okay, now you sit there and you're like, are they gonna go high now? Like, in an hour, is the alarm gonna go off that they're going high? You're gonna hope that the pump is, like, corrects itself, but it's like, what in the world? And I know, like, when we first got married, we talk a lot about this, and I really just want us to be, like, having these conversations and be just, like, brutally honest, because it's, like, not fun. Like, anything that comes in between you and your sleep, and man, do I love my sleep, it's not fun, you know? Of course, you do it for your kids. You love your kids, like, just like you did it when they were a baby, but it's like never really getting out of that stage is a struggle. There was a point in our life that we thought we were just cursed. We're like, it always goes wrong. There's always a low at night. There's always something going on. Like, nothing we do helps it. Like, we're just cursed. And then when you bring that kind of energy into your day, it's like you go like all these bad things do start happening to you because you're like attracting this bad energy. And I know that we went through a lot of our days living like that. Like, the world's against us, we didn't sleep, but then everything is happening at work. Like, we can't take a nap, like, we can't do this. Like, all this is happening. And it really took us, well, first honing in on our faith, right? And being like, so you're being tricked right now by the devil. It's not God. It's not God being on your side. You're getting tricked right now. God is still with you. He is still with part of your team, but you get confused by those late nights and those hard nights that there's something out to get you. So it really took our therapist being like, hey guys, you need to like flip your mindset on this, right? Like, you guys are believers, God is doing this. And it's all like thinking of like, all right, God put us in Parker and Evie's life to be their caregivers for a reason. So let's think of it like that versus how hard it is, how everyone's against us, no one knows what we're going through. And we just flipping our mindset of it because, in all reality, as much as we complain about it and we're like, boo hoo, life sucks right now because we didn't sleep, type 1 diabetes is not going to go away right now.
Mhm.
Like, until that cure comes. So until that cure comes, these are going to potentially be our nights and our days and what we deal with. So we had to flip our mindset because if not, it is so easy to stay stuck and stay in that negative mindset. And then when you're there, I can speak for myself personally, I spiral. Once I'm in that negative space for too long, I spiral and then everything in my life starts being very negative and everything kind of just goes down the drain. So it's really with this episode and with, this channel that we have, I really want, if it's a new parent of a type 1 diabetic or a caregiver or a family member or just like a parent interested of like hearing what type 1 diabetes is all about, like, I want you to know that we're here. Like, our life might seem fun on social media, and of course other people's life might seem fun, but I have really grown to appreciate um the content creators on social media that do have type 1, they keep it so real.
Mhm.
And I love that because one day you could be at top of the world and your numbers are in range and you're doing awesome. And then the next day it's like you're throwing up because you've been so high and you can't even get yourself down, like no matter what you do. So, really being open and being a safe place of like, We hear ya. We get you. And even if it's not type 1 diabetes, any other chronic illness or anything that else that goes on, it's just you as a caregiver and as a parent, you take it on when you're responsible for your kids.
I think for a lot of caregivers, we all deal with some type of, mental toll.
Yeah.
And our mental health will start dropping. It's completely normal when you don't get a lot of sleep. There's frustrations. You have compression lows or low nights or bad nights, all those type of things. And my real big thing is this is where we all have to kind of come together and be supportive and understand, right? Like, even if you feel alone, we're here. We get it. This is why we're doing this. So please reach out to us, send us comments, message us on Instagram. If you need a place to vent or anything like that, we get you. This is why we're doing this, because we actually truly understand what you're going through, and we're always better together. So, with that being said, all right.
Thanks for tuning in, Palmr fan. We look forward to the next one. Bye.
Bye.